What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Golf 360 podcast. I'm the host, Pete Popovich. So you may be asking yourself, what is Golf 360? And Golf 360 is a show that was designed to introduce you to people associated with the game of golf to help you improve not only at your game, but also your life. Almost all of our guests are from within the industry in some way, shape, or form, but some of the guests we have are from outside the industry, and it mainly revolves around the business world with a few others scattered in here and there. Now, all of the guests that we have a few things in common. One, they all were highly successful and accomplished in their field. Two, each has something to pass along that will help you in your game and your life. And three, they were all more than willing to give back by passing along the things that they use to help them in their career, and even some of the mistakes that they made so that others don't make them in their journey. So I hope you find listening to them as enjoyable as I did interviewing them, and that each and every one of you benefits from the information that they so willingly and graciously pass along. This podcast is brought to you in part by Just Thrive Probiotic. You may be surprised to learn that your digestive system is the key to creating and maintaining the quality of your physical, mental, and emotional health, and it's one of the body's most essential systems. That's why the majority of nutritionists today highly recommend probiotics as an indispensable nutritional supplement. As a discriminating consumer, you've probably been searching for a probiotic that is proven, potent, and effective, and you found it. Just Thrive is your best choice for maintaining a healthy lifestyle. Just Thrive Probiotic captures the power of hundreds of thousands of years of nature's design with a specialized bacillus strain formulation that guarantees survivability through the stomach and upper digestive system. Supports optimum gut health, digestive health, immune health, and delivers antioxidants. Great for adults, kids, and the whole family. Use promo code GOLF360 at www.thriveprobiotic.com for 10% off your order. This podcast is brought to you in part by Old South Golf Links. A short ride across a bridge from Hilton Head Island is one of the area's finest golf courses and a hidden treasure. Set up on towering pines and ancient oaks with sweeping marsh vistas, truly makes Old South Golf Links a one-of-a-kind golfing experience. The Clyde Johnson design was named one of the top 10 new public courses when it opened, and it also takes full advantage of the natural beauty of the Low Country. Old South is a fun and unique challenge for golfers of every skill level and a favorite of both locals and visitors. Whether it's your first time here or you're a regular, you'll be treated and feel like family. From the bag drop to check-in at the fully stocked pro shop with both men's and women's apparel, to breakfast or lunch before or after your round, the staff is always ready and willing to help. Experience for yourself why Old South is one of the premier golf courses in the Hilton Head area and why it will quickly become a favorite of yours too. Visit them in person or online at www.oldsouthgolf.com, or to make it tee time, simply call the pro shop at 843-785-5353. Many of you listening have and know your 5-year goal. In golf, it could be to break a certain score, win an amateur or professional tournament, improve your shop sales, or reach a new plateau in your business or for the company you're working for. But how many of you have asked yourself what that success really looks like to you as an individual? In other words, did you change as a person to achieve it, or did you compromise your values to get there? While he was president of worldwide automotive operations at Johnson Controls Incorporated, Rande Somma's first question to his team wasn't, what do we need to do different to achieve our new goals? It was, what won't we do under any circumstances to achieve these new goals? They first defined what they wouldn't do, which was violate their values, things such as lay people off to reach earning numbers or not paying to earn bonuses. They then defined the goal and how to achieve it. In today's interview, we discuss that entire process and how to develop a culture so that those things can flourish. Rande used this outline to help JCI reach Fortune 100 status and still uses it today when mentoring young professionals as part of his group, Rande Somma and Associates. It helps people in all walks of life avoid some of the pitfalls so many fall into in their quest for success. In addition to his mentoring program, he and his wife also started the Rande and Georgia Somma Integrity First Scholarship Program at Robert Morris University, Rande's alma mater. Last and certainly not least, he is the author of the book Leader Shit, a look at the broken leadership system in corporate America. And yes, that is shit, S-H-I-T, and not ship. It's a book that dives into some of the problems he encountered over 4 decades in and around the corporate system and the lack of leadership in general. This episode is filled with a ton of great information, and regardless of what industry you're in, what your life's ambitions are, I'm sure you'll take away some great words of wisdom to help you achieve them all after listening to my interview with Rande Somma. Okay, we're live. Rande Somma, the automotive rock star. That's what some of your contemporaries used to refer to you? Is that right?
Some of the Chinese automakers, yeah, that actually was said to me once, and it made me nervous.
I guess it sets the expectation, and you've got to meet it, doesn't it?
Yeah, the bar was high right away.
Yeah, we'll talk a lot about the automotive industry and your career and your experiences and so forth. But as we were talking before we came on, I kind of gave me a better idea for the first question to ask you. And since this is a private production, we're kind of allowed to say anything we want, just so long as we let people know in the summary and so forth. So I guess the first question I want to ask, and I did get this from a number of our mutual friends that wanted me to ask you, what exactly is a jagoff?
Well, the best way to answer that is this. When I wrote my book, it took 2 years to write it, and I had a ghostwriter, a wonderful lady that I worked for 2 years. And we were halfway through the book, and we were getting ready to work. We would do it in like 6 to 8 hour sessions. And she was getting her equipment out, and her laptop and her recorder, and we're about halfway through the book. And I said, Mary, why don't we clean it up a little bit? And she said, well, what do you mean? I said, we do use the word asshole in the book, not just to be gross or just to be, goof off. I mean, because it was the right word to use in that situation. And I said, why don't you we'll clean it up. We'll just take half of the assholes and substitute the word jagoff. And she's sitting at her computer by this time, and she said, what does jagoff mean? And I said, Google it. And she Googles it. And I said, read it out loud. She says, it says, asshole-like person. I said, finish it. Term originated in Pittsburgh. And I said, that's why we're going to use jagoff. And we did. And but a jagoff is an asshole, and that kind of a person. And it's if you're called that in Pittsburgh, run like a scalded dog. I mean, that is a bad thing to be called. Now, everywhere else, it's just a term for kicks. But so that's what it is. It's not a good thing.
Yeah, and for those that don't know you, you grew up Pittsburgh and then on the south side. Is that right?
Yeah, actually, yeah. South Hills, South Side. My grandmother grew up on the south side. I was in the South Hills, Pittsburgh. Went to City League High School. So I was, right there in the middle of the steelworks growing up.
So as we the MO, so to speak, of the podcast I've done so far, especially for some people who might be outside of golf, that there's always a tie-in. But one question that I wanted to bring up to you is, how does somebody like yourself go from the south side of Pittsburgh? How do you get into golf? Because it's not like there's a plethora of golf courses within the city of Pittsburgh.
Yeah, and certainly not. Yeah, it's hard to find a blade of grass where I grew up.
Yeah, especially back in that time.
Yeah. Well, look, I was lucky. My dad, who was a high school dropout and a waiter at the Pittsburgh Athletic Club, later went on, by the way, when they built the Pittsburgh Hilton in 1965, I think. Went there as a waiter and worked his way up to be the head of the food and beverage department there. But back when I was growing up, I don't remember when I didn't have a golf club in my hand. He was an avid golfer. He wasn't, he was probably about a 90s shooter. I'm not sure that he ever broke 90, and that's an average golfer. So but he loved the game, and he was a lefty. So I'm sure he would have, if he was still alive, appreciated your lesson on how to play lefty. Uh, but he would give me. I mean, I was in the back. We didn't have that much. We were lower middle income. We were happy with all that, but we would be in the backyard, and he would teach me how to swing golf clubs, and he would have his wedge, and showing me left-handed and he would swing to show me how to swing, and his wedge is shadow boxed and hung up in my office upstairs in the house here. So it was a real memory. But he taught me, and then he would take me every once in a while out near the airport to a place called Bon Air Driving Range, and Chuck Scally, who was a pro, would give me lessons, and my dad would play with. When he got to the Hilton, he would play every Saturday with either two foursomes or three foursomes of colleagues from the hotel, and he would always take me because by the time I was like 15 or 16, I was playing pretty good, and he wanted me to be there, not to show me off, but to maybe help him make some money or something off the other guy. I don't know. Yeah, but I'll tell you what, Pete. He let me tell you how avid he was. We went to a public course. I was about a half-hour drive, and it was one morning. I was probably about 16, and it was in I'm gonna say it was in October, and it was cold. I mean, I'm gonna say it was in the 30s. And we would get up around 4 a.m. because you couldn't make tea times at this place. We couldn't afford that. So you got up and you got there and put your bag in line. And so you get up at 5 o'clock, you're there, get your bag in line. And then you had plenty of time before it got light out because it's still dark at this point. Now you go eat breakfast. And then by then you might be able to go out. But this one morning, it was 30-some degrees, and I got my eyes open. I'm going, please, God, we're not going golfing today. Please, God, please, God. Well, here comes the door. The door kicks open. Let's go. And so I'm dressed. I'm freezing, and we get there. Nobody's there. Maybe a couple bags, but the clubhouse wasn't open. I mean, nobody was there. So we put the bags kind of in line. A couple of the other guys showed up, and we just teed off. And you got as an automatic 2-putt when you got to the green because there was a sheet of ice on the green. I mean, it was an automatic 2-putt because you couldn't putt. Now we're coming down number 9, and I'm telling you what, I can't feel anything on my body. And I'm thinking, so we get to the clubhouse. By that time, they open it up. We sit down and have breakfast. I figure, okay, that's it. He said, let's go. We go to number 10. And I went, oh, my God. But, when somebody loves the game of golf that much, you really – I mean, that's how much he loved it. And, and he is the reason why that I play the game. So I appreciate him for that, for sure.
I don't know what it is about guys from Pittsburgh, but my dad, I guess, used to carry his bag, I don't know, a mile or two to whatever golf course was in his area. And then he'd play 18 or 36, walk and carry, and then he'd walk home carrying his bag.
Yeah.
It's just, wow. Yeah. I asked him one time, I said, was it uphill both ways too?
Well, it's that working class, heaven forbid, you appreciate what you have, whatever it is. And you don't envy others because they have more. You just, use what you have and enjoy things. I loved it. I mean, I didn't know any better. I mean, that was awesome for me. Just to go one step further, when you talk about golf, and I learned again from him, golf etiquette. And again, getting back to there's right and wrong, and there's no in between. I mean, nowadays everything's in between, but there's right and wrong. So one time he splurged, and we went out to a golf course, and it was just me and him, and he rented a driving cart. I mean, maybe the first time I remember him doing that. And it was just me and him playing, and so it was a big day for him, right? He loved to play the games, playing with his son. He's got riding cart. And about the fourth hole, I hit a bad shot and throw my club. He got my club, and I get the cart, and he said, "Don't do that again." Well, on hole number 6, I hit a bad shot and throw my club. Now, here's what happens. He drives the cart over to my club, picks it up, drives to me, tells me to get in the cart, drives the cart to the car. This is from hole number 6. Loads the bags into the trunk, tells me to get in the car, and we drive home. And I tell you what, buddy, I never, ever, ever even thought of throwing a golf club ever again. I mean, but think about that. He sacrificed his day. I mean, his round of golf. I mean, it was a big deal for him. But he sacrificed it to teach me a lesson. And he sacrificed it for sure. I mean, he could have looked the other way. He could have whatever. But he saw that as an opportunity to teach me what was right and wrong when it comes to golf etiquette. And boy, I learned it big time.
Yeah, and you still remember it to this day.
I could still see the look on his face. My dad was Italian. He stared at me. He didn't talk. We got in that car, Pete. He didn't say a word all the way home. I was scared to death. Please, God, make him hit me. I mean, but yeah, I do remember it to this day, and I appreciate it. And what I also remember to this day is he sacrificed a lot to teach me that lesson, because he didn't play the rest of the day either. So, yeah.
Yeah, I had something it's similar in principle, where I was in college and I had my dad's favorite driver because I played really well with it. And one day, I don't know what hole it was, 16 or 17, and I hit a bad shot, and I turned around to my bag, and I hit it with my club. And we got up on the 18th tee, which is a par 5, and I pull out the driver, and I look down at the ball, and the shaft's crooked.
Oh.
And the first thought went through my mind is, I'm going to have to call my dad and tell him I broke his favorite club. And that was 30 years ago, and I remember it like it was yesterday. Yeah, you don't forget those things. But I think they make the biggest impact. If they weren't painful, you wouldn't remember.
Well, and that's the whole point, right? I mean, these days, and not in golf. I mean, it seems like in golf has managed to preserve its orthodoxy and how it operates and how it behaves, and what's right and what's wrong, and you can see it even in the quality of the players that play the game. But in other places, what's right and what's wrong has become very blurry now, because we're not teaching younger people that, because it's harder than looking the other way. And I call it surrendering duties to self-interest. And there are victims, like young people, who aren't going to learn appropriately, and when they grow up and go on in life, they're going to be really challenged.
Yeah, they don't realize the cost of that they think it's a small cost now, but it's a bigger cost later on.
Absolutely.
What so you progressed, you had the passion for the game, and you progressed well enough to play in college, didn't you?
I did. I did. I played 2 years at Robert Morris University.
What was college golf like back then?
Well, Robert Morris wasn't exactly,
Wake Forest.
Yeah, Wake Forest or Ohio State or I mean, I don't even know if it was Division One. It was such a long time ago, but um, I the placement director at the university was also the golf coach, and somehow, some way, I really have a hard time remembering so long ago, but I was talking to him about getting ready to prepare even as a sophomore for uh, interviewing and how that goes. It was one of those meetings, and during the discussion, I mentioned we got to talking about golf, and I guess they needed a player or two, and he tried me out. He went on and played with me for about 3 or 4 or 5 holes, and that's how I got onto the team. So yeah, 2 years on the team, and it was. Uh, again, we didn't do a lot of traveling. We did a little bit. The Northeast Conference tournament was out in Maryland somewhere, but it was competitive golf. I mean, it wasn't anything out of the ordinary for me because I had played so much. Maybe not necessarily competitive, but it was. In fact, I learned one lesson. We were a couple matches into time as a junior. We tee off. We're playing. I believe it was Penn State, and we tee off, and the fellow that I'm playing against, we tee off, and there's four of us, and then me and him, and we start walking down the fairway, and I just start making conversation. I say, "Geez, how where you from originally?" And he stops me, and he said, "Look, I mean, you seem like you're a pretty good guy. Fair enough, but we're playing a match, so I'm not talking to you until number 18 is over. We're done with 18." And I thought that was rude, but it did get me to understand. There's different. It's sort of like Arnold Palmer playing with Jack Nicklaus. I mean, it's
Hmm.
like, Arnie just wants to talk, from one shot to the next, and Jack doesn't want anybody to say anything because he's focused on hitting that next shot and doesn't want to be interrupted. So it did teach me that if you're going to commingle with different kind of players in that kind of environment, you have to appreciate what they want and don't force yourself on them. And if you can if you can just hold it and deal with it, you'll be done with it after 18, and that'll be that. But it was a good experience.
Did,
It was a nice experience.
did playing golf at a high level, collegiately? I mean, you could say wasn't one of the big powerhouses, but it's still a high level golf, right? Higher
Yeah,
than high school
yeah.
level. And then you're carrying a college load. Did that help you later on? You think in your business career?
Well, I think because what it what it did teach me through experience, and you know these things in retrospect. At the time, you're just trying to manage things. And then in retrospect, though, what it did teach me is um, how to manage that kind of a load. There was, I studied at different times. You just rearrange your schedule. And by the way, I mean, for me, if push came to shove, what was more important was my studies. Uh, yeah, I did want to do well in the golf course, but I was at that university to get a degree and go on to business. I wasn't there at the university to play Arnie and Jack in a match, or go on the tour. I know I was never going to be that. So it is a different environment because nothing can slough off. You have to operate at a high level in all the aspects. And listen, you find a way. I mean, you find a way, and if you don't, then you need to make an adjustment.
Do you think working again, looking back in retrospect, of course, that being on a team, even though golf's an individual sport, that learning how to work with others for a common goal was something you were initiated to, and then kind of had that to reflect on as you got into the business world?
Yeah, I'd say so. Golf is a little bit different. Yeah, it's a team. It's a golf team, but it's at the same time, it's an individual. You're performing on an individual
Mm-hmm.
level. But the relationship, maybe not on the golf course itself, but the relationship among the teammates, somehow, some way, if that chemistry um, synthesizes, it translates on the golf course. I think I see that when I think about that when I watch Ryder Cup. You look at, I don't know, this is just my opinion, but, the European team, look to me like, they're just having a good time with each other. They get along. They respect each other. They like each other. They enjoy each other. And then they go out and kick our butt. And the American team, it seems like a whole bunch of corporate entities, silos that there's not a lot of synergies between them. So the whole isn't greater than the sum of the parts. Where that's exactly what I think the European is. The whole is greater than the sum of the parts, and that's why they do so well. But I think it's a subtle thing. But anybody that's any team of any kind, and if you're a leader of that team, one of the things you have to be working on constantly is getting that group of people to get along well, and to interact well in a healthy way, in a positive way, in an enjoyable way. And if you get that done, that's going to show up and translate in their performance. And I don't care what that organization is doing.
Yeah, I think you saw that. Paul Azinger, I think, did a very good job of that when he was the Ryder Cup captain. Where he used leadership tactics. Not that the other captains didn't, but he seemed to have the magic formula where he put the guys in pods.
Yeah, I remember
and
that.
Made
Yeah,
them click. And I can't remember if the U.S. was the underdog at that one or not. But I mean, they end up going on to win decisively, if I remember correctly. But you're right. It seems to be a challenge for the U.S. side to evidently they bond very well, and they're very get together very well in the team room, but it just doesn't seem to have gelled well on the golf course for whatever reason. I'm just glad I'm not the one in charge of having to fix that issue.
Well, look, I don't think any leader is going to have trouble with that because, and I'm not saying our golfers I'm sure wonderful people, but their mindset is very much what I call silo focused. It's me, myself, and I. And I think that's their center of gravity. Now, I'm not saying they're bad people or don't get along, but I think it's very hard for an American, the leader of the American team, to energize the organization left or right when all they want to do is look up and down. And where I think, and if you can do that, and believe me, it's not easy. Azinger's approach obviously was a good one, but there's a lot of leaders that don't even try to do that. But it'll almost always show up in the results. And it sounds like a stretch, right? Because we're talking about what goes on in the locker room and at the dinner table and so on, and not necessarily the golf course. But it's the same thing. Teammates to get along and enjoy each other and have each other's back and appreciate each other. However you get that done, I'll take their chances.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know if it stems from the European part of the equation being they've always been considered the underdog, even though they've been kicking our rear end the majority of the last 10 years. But they almost take that underdog mentality that they're going to, whatever it takes, and cohesiveness, bonding, putting everything else aside for the betterment of the whole seems to be something that they've nailed down to a T. I just hope that the U.S. can get that formula correct, because I think these lopsided wins are not good for the event, even though it'll always be probably the premier event in golf. And the comebacks are, both sides of it has had a comeback from a huge deficit, which made it even better TV. But it would be nice to see it go down almost to the end. You'd hate to see anybody have the pressure to make a 6-footer for the entire Ryder Cup like Bernard Longer had to do at Kiowa. But more evenly matched till the end, I think. Just my opinion. Maybe others have other opinions, but so be it.
Well, there's probably reasons for it, Pete, but the European team, and the reason why I believe in this is it's happening year after year after year. It's not just like a one and done. Even a broken clock is right twice a day. But they're doing this every year now. Now, they may not win every year, but you can see it's the same approach. It's the same feeling. But obviously, whatever the details are, the European golfers move seamlessly from an individual sport to a team sport.
Mm-hmm.
The American golfers hit a wall. They hit a wall. And I don't know what it is. I mean, I'd love to study that. I mean, that's stuff that, even a business leader, and it gets back to culture again. The culture of the European golfers, that culture, that world, it operates in a manner that they seamlessly move from individual focus to a team focus. I don't know exactly what it is, but I bet you somebody who's looking for it can find that answer.
I think it has a lot to do with the travel. They're traveling continent to continent for the most part. They're going from continental Europe to the Middle East, and from what I'm told, a lot of them will travel together and hang out together, dinner, and so on. Where here in the U.S., it seems to me, like you said, more siloed, more individual, where they're not doing as much together. You might have pods of guys doing things, but I don't think the top guys are, let's say, hanging out in a hotel room or in a rental house watching, the NBA finals before they go out to play. So you're right.
Well,
the culture has a lot to do with that.
It's like again, I'm watching it like anybody watches, the Ryder Cup. I mean, it almost looks like the Americans almost look like they're not in their element. It's almost like they're itchy. They're uncomfortable with it. I don't know exactly how to say it, but and you look over at the Europeans and they're laughing and giggling and, and Longer, or not Longer, or whoever, hits a putt and then they start, screaming and hollering and so I don't know. For me, I can see the difference. And of course, I looked at this from a business perspective too, because I was so focused on getting the culture right. And I just think that there's something going on. And you're right. It may be the travel and working together. There is more of a relationship there. And not that the American golfers, I'm sure they still like each other, but it's very rigid. It's not that emotional. It's more intellectual. And so I don't know. Who knows? But it is a challenge for anybody that leads the American team to deal with that, whatever is causing that. But there is definitely a wall, and they don't move seamlessly from an individual sport to a team sport. They really don't.
But that's probably a pretty good lead into the next section I want to get into, and it gets into your book. And for people who don't know why you might be qualified, so to speak, to talk about culture, you wrote a book called Leadership, SHIT, for those who might be wondering if I said that right or not. Leadership, a look at the broken leadership system in America. And we've had plenty of discussions about the tie between golf and the business world. Not just the country club memberships and that business deals are made in the golf course, but in particular, the integrity or lack of it in society today, and how that relates to golf. And you've said it plenty of times where golf is actually a game where you have to call the penalty on yourself. So can you just speak to that a little bit, the book and culture, and as we're talking about those things, and your experience in how to create both?
Yeah. I wrote the book 2 years ago, and it was quite a feat given that I'm ADHD and never really read a book. Because I have a hard time sitting still to do that. But over the course of my time in corporate America, I was the only supplier executive that sat on the GM, Ford, and Chrysler Executive Supplier Advisory Committee concurrently. On top of that, I ran Johnson Controls Automotive Group worldwide. When I left Johnson Controls, I was on a number of boards. I was chairman of one, vice chairman of another. And so I got to be on the other side of the door. And we're in the boardrooms and where the executives meet and so on and so forth. And what I saw was the reason why I felt I wanted to and needed to actually write the book. And the best way to say it is, if you look at any organization's website and look at their mission statement and their values and how they operate and so on and so forth. And you see that. And usually that's really good stuff. Usually that says integrity, number one, how they treat their people, their customers, their shareholders, continuous improvement, innovation, the environment, the community, and so on. And it's all good stuff. And that's what they value, and that's how, in essence, then they operate in that way. And then you get in the room and the door closes, and you don't see hardly any of that at all. There is a whole different agenda, and what that agenda is, me and now, and me being the CEO and chairman and the board and the executive committees. And their goal is to optimize their earnings in a given year. And how they get there, now your values, like I always say, your values say in a company should tell you as a leader, we're going to get to where we need to go, but this is what we're not going to do. You decide that first. And usually your values firewall you from those inappropriate means of getting to the right place. But when you get in the boardroom, those firewalls come down. And almost always it's things like stealing money from your long-term strategic plan, laying off people, if not laying off people, not paying bonuses. Everything that you said your company was all about in the boardroom, you violate each and every one of them. And I saw that over and over and over again. And then I started wondering about, what's really going on here. And there was a couple of cases where it really, proved itself. And I talk about it in the book. And the book, by the way, are stories that I tell. It's not just my feelings to make my point. But a couple of times on a couple of boards, I challenged the chairman because he was not doing the job that he was required to do. And I thought that my job was to not accept that. And in both cases, when I got done challenging that chairman, what I noticed more than the craziness about why he decided he just doesn't have to do his job, what I noticed was the board members around me were, you would think they would support me. Well, they were looking at their shoes and looking at their phone and their watch. And the one guy I can just see saying, Randy, when are you going to be quiet so they can bring in lunch? And I just, I thought, these aren't bad people, but why am I the only one doing my job and insisting this individual do what he is supposed to do and not what he chooses to do? And in this one particular case, he left the room, the chairman, and I said to the board members, I said, we've morphed into a place, and I think not just here, but a lot of places. We've morphed into a place where we're not holding people accountable for what they're obligated to do. We're holding them accountable for what they're willing to do. And that drop-off is going to cost us big time. And that drop-off is us being irresponsible. Well, in two of the cases I had that conversation, and again, it was a learning opportunity. I ended up with a shiny plaque and a going away luncheon. And so what I learned from that was that bad is normal. That's why the other members weren't chiming in, because it was so obvious what I was saying was right, but they weren't chiming in because it wasn't because they were bad. It was because they didn't even know it was bad anymore. And we've gotten so accustomed to it. And every once in a while, somebody like me who, for some reason, didn't get the memo, brings it up, and then next thing you know, I'm the one that's in trouble and on my way out the door. So it brings in the whole thing of integrity, Pete. There is none. I mean, integrity starts with, what does your website say? Who you are, what your mission is, how you treat your people, how honest are you? They all say that. So number one, your number one test of integrity is, are you just talking the talk, or are you walking the talk? And I saw no companies, when I look back in retrospect, that had integrity and were doing what they were supposed to do. I think that, it's not what you do that matters as much as how you did it. Because the how you did it is where the integrity and the sustainability exists. I mean, if you practice, I know you practice golf a lot, and you shoot a good score, you got a chance of shooting that score a lot because there's integrity in your game, right? Mm-hmm. Now, if you cheat and start that score, what's your chances you're going to do it again? Not that good. So the sustainability is not there. The credibility is not there. I said when I had the honor of doing the commencement speech at Robert Morris, my alma mater, in 2015, and it was the doctorate and the master's degree students, and it was about 500 or so of them, and I wanted to talk to them about, hey, let's talk about defining success. And I said, let's start with, you're all getting degrees here, but let's just say hypothetically, some of you are getting your degree because you cheated on tests and plagiarized on papers. Are you successful today? And it was like I wasn't looking for hands, but my point was, maybe you are, and I'm not going to tell you what the answer should be. But I am telling you, though, however, that if honor and integrity means anything to you at all, then you're not. So it's a tough thing right now with integrity, because it's just hard to know anymore who you can trust.
Well, let's go to the other side of the coin real quick. In failure, do you think that? Well, let me let's start real simple. Do you think failure is an okay thing?
I think failure is necessary. It's necessary. I was giving a talk, and the publisher. I learned a lot about books since I didn't read. I tried to read the life story of Roberto Clemente one time because, he's the greatest Pittsburgh Pirate ever. And even then, I barely got through the introduction. But but I was giving a talk around the book. I was invited to give a talk, and the publisher, I just go back and say, publisher, when I was writing the book, I put stories in the book that were, that other than just corporate America, because the issues that I saw in corporate America, I saw in all leadership purposes, including parents. And I was talking about, I said, for instance, participation trophies. I said, who invented those? Parents. Why? Because the parent didn't like to feel bad when their kid lost. Well, what is the collateral damage? Well, you've edited losing and failure out of the equation now. Failure is necessary. It's the most powerful way to learn and get better. The most powerful way. It's absolutely necessary. And we're editing out of the equation. Why? Because the parent doesn't want to feel bad. Surrendering duties to self-interest. And so, yes, I think now it has to be handled well and as a teaching moment, not as an opportunity to get thrashed, but it's a teaching moment. And if it's handled well, it can be very powerful.
How do you, getting back to, now let's go back to the original side of the coin. How do you define success?
Well, I actually put together a template, and it's my template, and it's rough, and I drew it out, and I work with some young people, a few of them, that I really wanted to talk to them about this because I want them to think through beyond the narrow, typical answer to that question. But, success, typically, if I ask a young person, look out 5 years from now and you're successful, what does that look like? Typically, what I'm going to get is what job they have, what title they have, what company they work for, and probably how much money they're making, which none of those are bad, but all of those aren't enough to define success. So what I do is I say, well, there's a what in terms of that answer, what you are, what you have. There's nothing wrong with that, but let's put that down. Now, that's number one. Number two, who are you? What kind of person? And I say to them as we're going through the process, when people are sitting in the room that know you and you're not in the room, they're speaking of you, what words do you want them to use? Like selfless, dependable, friendly, reliable, so on and so forth, versus the exact opposite of those. So we talk about who you are, and then we talk about your what. We go back to your what you achieve in 5 years. How did you achieve it? Getting back to what we talked about earlier. Through what means did you achieve that versus others that are available to you. We even talk about compensation. And again, I'm trying to get them to open their minds a little bit and make some trade-offs in terms of defining success. In terms of compensation, financial is only one of the ways. Another one is enjoyment. That's a compensation for doing work. Another one's fulfillment. Another one is security. And I even give them a place to put other. And I say, okay, you're obviously up to 100%, but break down where you like your compensation to come from. And I've never had anyone put down 100% is money. If I didn't give them that opportunity to look at it through that perspective, that's what they would do is 100% is money. They can't, never thought about it the other way. So all of that gets laid out, Pete, and then what we just do is look it all over and make sure it all is reconciled. If you tell me that you want 90% of your compensation is going to come from money, don't tell me that you're going to go work for a nonprofit company. I mean, we need to one of those have to change, But it's funny how you find out. I find out all the time how people do want to work for something. They want to work. They want to like their work. and they want to enjoy their work. And I said, hey, you and I both know an individual, Michael Bello. He's a great example. Michael, went to Annapolis, graduated Annapolis. I don't know what his GPA is, 7,000, and he's just a wonderful human being. But he's got 3 daughters, and he and his wife, he decided with his wife, I'm sure, that he was going to get a job, only kind of job where he was never going to travel, because he wanted to spend all of that time with his daughters. And he was willing to give up whatever he wasn't going to get financially from passing up offers for companies that are going to ask him to travel. And he said, look, net, I'm ahead. They can keep the money. There's a good deal for me. So that's the kind of definition of success that I'm talking about. And it really works good for at least a few people that I've taken through it.
Do you see one of the problems when you start with somebody like that who you're teaching or mentoring, that they're looking at things too linearly, in that they're in position A and they want to get to position B in 5 years, and they see a straight line to that, but they don't see all of the variables involved, be in their life or their professional life or all these other things. And I only say that because when I interviewed Colonel Smith, and you got to listen to that, one of the things that his pieces of advice that he said he would have told his younger self was, don't get so caught up in the achievement or accomplishing something that you neglect the things that are important to you, because when you get to the end of that accomplishment, those things that were important might not be there. So is it getting some of these young people to understand that it's not just a straight line, that there are variables and there's tangents and there's all these things involved?
Yeah, I mean, it's and the Colonel was exactly right. I mean, I say, look, don't be so fixed on the destination that you don't see that you don't enjoy the journey. I mean, it's all about the journey, right? I mean, if you enjoy the journey, I got a feeling you're going to be happy with the destination. I mean, versus a lot of young people are fixed on the destination. They hate the journey. And maybe they get to the destination, but they're miserable. I do think that there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with having goals and aspirations at all, and then putting together a plan, like I do with some young people. That okay, fine. Now let's go through the plan on what's the process you're going to work through to get there. But you're right, Pete. You can't. It's not like linear. It's not like, okay, you're going to follow this process. It's not like baking a cake. I mean, it's like there's going to be some interruptions. There's going to be some failures. There's going to be all of that. But see, I think I'm a big proponent of young people having mentors, because if a mentor can do anything for a young person as they're going through this process, when they fall down, tell them it's okay and help them up, and don't let them think that means they failed or that the game's over. Or no, it's just it's part of the journey. It's just part of the journey. Now, let's learn from it. Get up. Let's move on. But again, and parents can do this too. I'm sure parents do this all the time. But although I do say, I have said in some talks before, that parents probably are the least qualified to be mentors. Number one, they're not objective because they love their child, and number two, by this time they're white noise. Even if they're saying good stuff, the kid doesn't hear them. So, but some stranger from out of nowhere, for some reason, the relationship is just different, and it's like a kind of a golf coach in a way, right? I mean. Mm-hmm. Great golfers have coaches. Why is that? I mean, you're a great golfer. What do you have a coach for? Because you're probably doing something wrong that only somebody else can see, right? I mean, you obviously don't know that you could be doing better. But you swing a club, you think everything's great, and the coach is changing 5 things, and you would have never seen that. But it is not linear, right? And there are there are ups and downs. There's ebbs and flows. Hey, listen, my career, I ended up at one point working for a company that went Chapter 11. 3 years after I went there, I thought that was a great thing. I was going to get some equity in this company, and I was about 32. My oldest son at the time was, I think, 1, and the other son wasn't born yet. But here I am, and I have no job, and the company went Chapter 11. So another one. I was at a plant, heavy duty truck axle plant, and I find out they're closing the plant down. They're laying everybody off. So those were 2 cases where my job was over. And I'll tell you what, that wasn't on the game plan. That wasn't that was okay. Now what? You pick yourself up and you move on and you keep going and you get better for it. So, but to answer your question, young people would not know that by themselves. They would not know that. They need other people to tell them, and that's what I spend time telling them. And a lot of times they'll give me a call only because they're at some kind of a crossroads, and they want to know what I think, in case maybe I know what the right answer is. Sometimes I don't, and especially when they want to talk about things like software. But I don't know that right answer.
Well, I think it's having a mentor or a coach or whatever the title is. I think it gives the person that's being mentored some reassurance, because they're obviously willing to make changes to themselves to get to another level, and having someone that's been there that can guide them, because at some point they have to let go of the way they're doing something and do something a new way. And it can be very uncomfortable and very unsettling, which is, I think, why most people will give up on it, whatever endeavor is, that they just can't handle the uncomfortableness. But if you have a mentor or a coach that you can bounce things off, or that you can say, hey, what about this, that can keep you on track and say, it's all right, just keep working, stick to the fundamentals and the principles and the game plan, and you will get there, and then you'll be comfortable again. Because, achieving something, having some success is a great way to instill comfort, I think. Like winning. You see a guy or a girl who might have struggled on professional ranks for years, and then they win, and next thing you know, that they win 3 more times in the next year or 2. They put the pieces together. They just had them off. The recipe was wrong. So yeah, because to get to your point about young kids, all the young kids I work with, as they're getting to graduate from high school, they say, well, I want to play pro golf, and I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. Okay, what if something throws you off course? Oh, nothing's going to throw me off. I'm too dedicated. It's like, you got life is going to blindside you at some point, but you can't. You have to let them go through that. And I think that's, in my opinion, why failure is a good thing. And you said it's a necessary thing. I agree 100%.
Yeah. Well, in something, look, even as I've mentored people, even with raising my sons, who are in their 30s now, sometimes they're making a decision to do that isn't going to work out. Now, they're not going to know it for, I don't know, a few months or a couple of weeks or whatever, but I know now how that movie ends. And so I'm trying to explain it to them, and because they weren't there and done it, and it's not that they don't believe me, so you go back and forth, and I finally decided, and even with young people that I mentor, there are times when you aren't going to convince them otherwise, and then your job is to go around to the other side of this thing and be there to catch them when they fall. Because you're not going to talk them out of it. So your next best thing is be there for them when they get punched in the mouth.
Mm-hmm.
And that's okay too, because like you said, and like you brought up, okay, now learning the tough way. All right, you want to minimize those, but those are going to happen. But the question really is there going to be somebody there with you to explain what just happened and why that's okay? Hey, listen, people have a much harder time managing success than they do managing adversity. Much harder. I mean, I've managed them. First of all, there's a fine line between confident and cocky, and you got to know where that is. And I've taught that before to people, and it's not a exact science. You kind of know it when you see it. But when you become successful, cocky creeps into the equation. It can kind of get you stepping over that fine line. Confident is good. Cocky, not so much. And by the way, if you get cocky, you quit getting better because you already think you're the best on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
And so you've now shut down the opportunity for you to get better, and that's a darn shame. But then again, that's where the mentor comes in, and I've done that. I've had confident, cocky meetings a few times, and sometimes people, like they say, sometimes people are coachable, and sometimes people don't agree with you, and that's okay too. But you're probably going to find out the hard way then.
Right. Now, in your career, you obviously you worked. JCI was a Fortune 100 company.
Fortune 50.
Fortune 50. So now, when you got there, it wasn't at that level, was it?
No, it was the automotive. I worked for the automotive operations. At the time they had three divisions. One was the controls division, which still exists today. It's climate. It's energy management in buildings and so on. There's the energy management or controls. There was the battery division, which is automotive batteries, but wasn't part of my business because these batteries were sold to retail. Like they made a lot of the Sears Die Hard battery,
mm-hmm.
a lot of the Interstate battery. So it's private labeled automotive batteries. And my operation was the automotive operations globally, and our products were most all of the products on the inside of the vehicle. And when I joined the automotive group, as I was the sales manager of sales for the Chrysler account, we were 800 million was our sales in 1988. 800 million. I left there in 2003, and I was president worldwide, and our sales were 20 billion.
Ooh.
So it was quite a ride. It was mind-boggling at times, but it was quite a ride.
Well, that gets into my question: is can you speak to the differences in wanting to achieve success, and then how do you manage success?
Well,
or is that if that's too big of a topic? I mean,
no, I said, well, it is a bit. Fit. It is a great question, and it is a big topic. I really do believe it's harder to manage success. I mean, the first thing that becomes very vulnerable, and this is with corporations, this is with football players, this is what maybe golfers, that are just coming out and quickly are successful. And it's the first thing that becomes vulnerable big time is your humility. I mean, you just lose grounding, and you come too big for your own britches, and when that happens, you just quit getting, like I said before, you quit getting better because you already think you're king. And it is a really hard, it really is a hard thing to manage, because we're talking about human beings. It's not like a robot you can reprogram or something. But I would say for a company, for a corporation, at least in my case, when we were doing so well over years, and by the way, we took some hits too. That wasn't linear either. But even when we had our successes, our contracts that we were awarded were anywhere between $300 and $500 million contracts. But you won that contract, but now you had to go to work and fulfill your commitment that you made in achieving that contract. And oh, by the way, over here you have these other, we did business with everybody in the world. So you might get a contract from Toyota, and now you have to put a team together to fulfill the commitment you made to Toyota that encouraged them to give you that business over, in addition to the price. And you have some other contracts that you're working on trying to get. So you're never, the game's never over. There is no fourth quarter. There's this constant introduction of new things that are challenging you to achieve, or you're going to have a dissatisfied customer. So I think the problem, maybe the good thing about corporate America is that if you do have a success, there's always 3 or 4 other things out there that are waiting for you to either hit or miss. So you never come down. I mean, I never. We would if we won a large contract, we would at whatever business it was, we would celebrate it, and it would last about an hour, and then you move on. And I think that's maybe an advantage versus some of the young people I see, where some of these, like for instance, my hometown guys like Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell, and talk about all of a sudden going from team to self, and when that shift goes. By the way, I've seen that with corporate executives too. Personally watched it. So the point is, Pete, these are human beings. In my case, I was always just aware of it, that we could never lose our humility. And so the minute that I saw we could celebrate, everybody deserves that when we had successes, but that was, held to, enough to celebrate, but now we have to move on. We can't let people down. You win a contract and you celebrate. To get that contract, you had to make promises. Over and above your price, you had to make promises. I didn't make those lightly. I didn't make them just to get the order and then not do them. Just talk. Talk about integrity. If you're not going to do it, don't say it. If you're going to say it, you better darn well do it.
Was that the culture you built?
Yes.
While you were there, that honor your word, maintain your integrity, not what you're going to do to do those things, but what you're not willing to do to achieve. Meeting the contract, but giving up on your values and integrity to get there. So can you speak to how you incorporated that, how you cultivated that culture, you put it in place and you cultivated it, and how that grew?
Yeah,
especially in that size of an outfit company.
Well, yeah. Well, when I first took over the North American operations before worldwide, North America was about $8 billion, and we were challenged by the corporation whether or not we could put goals out in front of us that were more of a stretch beyond the traditional goals that we had set, which were pretty good, but they thought we were better than that. We were being too conservative. So we wanted to answer that challenge. So me and my team got together in a room, and we went through the areas that we thought we could increase our aspirations and reach. And it was quite a transformational change. It was going to be required to go from where we typically are to where we were now going to try. It was like a quantum leap to what our new goals were going to be. And we're going to require transformational changes to be able to achieve them. And so I got up on a whiteboard. We're having an offsite meeting, got up on a whiteboard. And I didn't start out by saying, okay, what do we need to do different to achieve these new goals? My first question was, what won't we do to achieve these new goals? And we wrote them down. And they're everything the corporations do when the fire drill hits and they have to meet their earnings. Lay off people, pull money from their long-term strategic plan, don't pay bonuses. Everything violates your values, all of them, directly and indirectly, both. And so I wanted to first start with what won't we do? Okay, we're not doing this. So this is off the table, unavailable. Now what will we do? And we came up with a list of what we would do. And now did it work? Yes, it did. Now was it without challenge? No. Every once in a while we would get in a staff meeting, and we would be having a tough time coming up with meeting our Wall Street projections for a given quarter. And what was sitting right there, kind of sort of out there in the bullpen, was all these things we said we wouldn't do, that if we did a few of those, it would have fixed our problem short term. But so somebody would kind of say, hey, what about, and then somebody on the team, not me even all the time, said, no, that's not available. Well, what if we just, and maybe just this one time, and I would chirp up and say, hey, ever hear the term slippery slope? That's not an option. Never means never. So we're either going to come up with the right answer, or we're going to be in big trouble because we're not going to make our numbers. And I'll tell you what, Pete, that happened a lot. And every single time we came up with an answer. Every single time. It was, as I sit here, I'm still amazed. And the reason why we came up with the right answer was because the wrong answer wasn't available, was not an option. And today in the companies I was in, it was on the table constantly. So that was, one, and it's sort, we just kind of kept doing that. And, it's a matter of reinforcing. So we could sit in this one offsite meeting and say we're never going to do that. But now we're in the meetings where now it matters, right? I mean, now Wall Street's watching us. And we're not going to, what are we going to do? I don't know if we're going to hit these numbers, and then we're going to be in trouble. Our stock's going to go down. I'm going to get called from the chairman, blah, 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 blah. What are we going to do? Oh, why don't we reach over just this one time and take it from what we won't do? Let's just lay off 100 people. If you do the math, that'll get us there. No. I understood why they asked, because these aren't easy problems, okay? But no, I'll take the hit. I will take the hit before I do that. And we found the answer. And it was interesting to me, what I learned was the right answer is always there if you have to find it. The old have to factor has kind of gone away anymore. I mean, if you have to do this or there's consequences. You have to do that. No, anymore, you don't have to do anything. There's no have to factor. When you put the have to factor into the equation, you'd be surprised with what greatness you can come up with.
Yeah, isn't it amazing how many people can make a 8-footer for par, but you give them the same putt for birdie and they don't even touch the hole?
Yeah,
right.
Like me. No, but when you have to, and I know you, I know the kind of person you are. I mean, there are times I'm sure that you are good at differentiating where you can have some flexibility, whether you do this or do that. And there's times when there's only one right answer, and everybody sees those. Hey, listen, all these board of directors, they knew what the right answers were. But they also know that they weren't going to be bound to do that. The system isn't going to make them do that. They're allowed to do something else. And that's what they do.
What was it in that first meeting that were you pondering that question of what your team was not willing to do, or what your division was not willing to do, based off what you had seen other corporations do, or through your experience in the business world? Or was it just something that a theory you had been playing with, and then wanted to put it in action because you thought it would help the corporation and help the group? How did that come about?
Yeah, that's the the honest answer to that question is an act of God. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. The normal natural first word out of any leader's mouth in that situation would be to say, okay, what do we have to do different now? Because we're going to have to re-engineer ourselves. We have to re-engineer ourselves because we can't get to those new goals based on the way we're engineered now. So what has to change? And I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, I've always been somebody that maybe I'm a little bit too literal. So when I see integrity, I feel like that's what's meant. Not that I'm 100% perfect, but we were around the same time having a meeting about. I said our mission statement is to be the world's leader in automotive interiors, and I said to the team, I said, if our morale is low, now I recognize we had 75,000 people in 26 countries, but if our morale is low, can we be this global leader in automotive interiors? I mean, does that even relate to you that you could do that if your morale was low? Well, no, you couldn't. Well, we don't even measure morale. Then what the heck? I mean, why are we saying this? This is BS. I mean, let's go measure the morale. And if the morale is low, let's change it. So we'll be good at automotive interiors most of the time, I think. So we went out and hired a company to do survey, and then we worked on increasing it, the morale. And as we increased the morale, our performance got better. So I think the thing is, Pete, that, the right stuff is all right in front of our eyes. If you do them, everything's going to be great. If any company looked at their website, looked at their mission statement and their values, and followed those relentlessly, they'll be fine. I was one of the board of directors meetings, boards I was in a way asked to leave. There was my last shareholders meeting, and I was leaving the facility. And on the way out, one of the newer board members came up to me and said, "Geez, Randy, I'm really sorry to see you leave, and it was great to meet you and nice working with you. Since I'm a newer board member, do you have any advice for me?" And I said, "Yeah, do your job. Just do your damn job." And it was so bizarre in a way, because all I'm saying is, you're not doing it, start doing it. But it's not that easy, because bad is normal now. And good, get you a shiny plaque.
Do you think that climate is getting worse?
I think it's I don't know if it's getting worse. I don't know how I would measure that. I talk to students, and Georgia and I have our Integrity First scholarship program at Robert Morrison University, and because of that, I get to talk to students for all sorts of things from time to time, and we talk a lot about ethics and morality and integrity. And what I do notice is, and I don't know to what extent, but a lot of young people are one of the fastest growing curriculums in business schools is entrepreneurialism. And when you ask enough questions, you find out that one of the reasons why students want to do this is they don't want to go into corporate America and have to sell out on their values. And oh, by the way, the values publicized by the company they work for, in order to keep their job. So they don't want that dilemma. They don't want that gook. So if they have their own company, then they don't have to deal with that, But I don't know, to answer your question, I really don't know if it's growing. I know that it's embedded. Like I said, in my experience, what really got me more nervous than anything was seeing it as on a normal. And I thought, well, if it's a normal, and by the way, I saw it. I tell a short story in the book about experiencing that with our church and the leadership in our church. I think parents are just as guilty as surrendering duties for self-interest as anybody. Politicians is beyond an example. So I think it's our normal. I think our leadership orthodoxy in this country of all shapes and forms is broken. And the standards now have dropped so low that the wrong people are getting in there. And the right people are getting shiny plaques.
How do you fix it? If you were King Randy, how would you go about fixing it?
If I was King Randy, well, let's see. Geez, yeah. If you told me you were going to ask me that question, Pete. Well, I'll tell you what. I'll start with it. That's a really good question. I get asked that question a lot, actually, and I have never had a good answer for it. But I mean, I understand the question, by the way. I mean, because it's that's why I call leadership. It's systemic. It's not just little examples. It's what we are. But corporate. I answer at least a little bit. Take an attempt, even though it's a bad one. Somebody asked me once about if I wanted to get a good sense of how a company leadership was operating, and I would ask one question, what would it be? And my one question would be is, what is the formula your bonus is based on? Because what I'm probably going to hear is this year's financials. What I'm not going to hear is anything about the future or anything about the people's morale and how they're treated. And the reason why I'm not is because a lot of times to get to that number and to get to that bonus, a lot of those people are going to lose their jobs. Why? Because did their work go away? No. You just can't have them. Less people makes earnings go up. And Wall Street gets giddy when they hear about layoffs because of that reason. They know your earnings are going to go up. What are you going to be like 5 years from now? They don't care. Long term is irrelevant. So if I can change, Jack Welch, not Jack Welch, Lee Iacocca wrote a book once, Where Have All the Leaders Gone? And he was really talking about, it wasn't that long ago, but he really was talking about politics. He was saying, geez, where's all the leaders? I mean, obviously implying that politicians today are anything but leaders, and I agree with that. But even when it comes to corporate America, and my answer in the book was, where have all the leaders gone? We're all right here, Lee. There's just no market for us. Nobody wants to hire leaders who are going to stick to the integrities, to follow the company's values, embody the company's values. And by the way, even if you don't hit your earnings doing that, then you probably don't belong in that job. God made us to fail at most things. So, go do something else that you are good at. But, cheating is not an option. So I'm not answering your question, Pete. I'm trying to go around it, but it's a great question. I get asked a lot of time. Sometimes Georgia, my wife, I ask her this question, and she'll answer is one person at a time. One person at a time. And the cool thing is, because of the book, I've heard from dozens of people, not hundreds, dozens, from Yokohama, Japan, to Munich, Germany. And almost all of them are very, very consistent in saying, who don't know each other at all, saying the same thing, that they are in this system. They know it is wrong. It's bothering them. They don't like working in it, but they don't know where to go because they don't know where it isn't. But what the book did was it made them feel good because now they know it isn't them. It's the system.
Yeah, because I know in my own experience, when you're doing what you consider the right thing and everybody around you. I won't say everybody, but most of that entity, whether it's a corporation or a staff at a golf club or a group of teachers, whatever it is, fill in the blank. When you're doing the right thing and you're getting almost ostracized or excommunicated, you feel like you're on an island.
That's why lonely is. That's why the word lonely has come up too, randomly. But I was very much aware of that word. You do feel lonely. I mean, it's kind of a. I don't know the right words. I'm not a psychologist, but from what I've experienced, when you and I'm not saying be a person of integrity and go broke. I'm not saying, look, if you look at, I only put a few charts in my book, but the only reason I put them in there was when we adopted a culture of integrity, our performance got better. And here's the difference. It wasn't just the absolute numbers. It was also credible and sustainable, like we talked earlier. And so you got a 3 for there. The number, it's credible, sustainable. I mean, that's pure. That's gold. But nobody is expecting their leadership to do that. I mean, how many people have called me since the book was published? How many companies have called me to say, hey, come and show me how you did that? 0. They don't need to. They don't need to be honest. They don't need to have integrity. Just hit the number. And if you broke a law, don't get caught. Because I saw some of that too. So look, the standards are too low. The expectations are too low, and the way we pay these people, which is way too high, by the way, the way we pay them is only on short-term earnings. There are so many things. You know what opens the door what door opens when you talk about just short-term earnings? And this is why I'm really nervous, because what you just did was open the door to leaders kicking the can. Now, if short-term wasn't open, they'd have to fix it. Now, that's part of how they're going to get paid. They don't have to fix it. They can kick it. If it's not going to affect this year's earnings, it gets kicked. Why? Because it's really hard to fix it. And I'm not going to get paid for it. So, that's the part that bothers me a lot. The whole long-term thing is unfortunate. It's like I said too one time in a talk where, if a good answer to a near-term question, immediate question, is pulling the pin on a grenade, you're going to pull it. Why? Because you're not going to be standing next to it when it goes off. Now, if I tell you pull the pin on a grenade, but now you got to drop it, I bet you come up with a better answer.
Mm-hmm.
But guess what? Nobody's making them say that. Nobody's saying that. Just get through the year. I'll tell you I was an advisor on a company that Pete. I mean, I'm sorry, this was in the book too. Is in the book, but abbreviate. The performance was really bad at the end of a year. The board, I was advisor to the board. The board said, if next year, if you hit these numbers, you'll get these bonuses. And it was in the millions. So the year goes, they hit the numbers, they're going to get their bonus. And I raise my hand and say, if you did a Pareto chart of what were the reasons why the earnings improved, what would be the categories that would be represented in the Pareto chart? You know what the number one category was? They laid off 437 people. Now, you know me well enough to know I couldn't be quiet. I said, what is going on here? I mean, you ruined 437 lives, and you're going to get paid for that? And by the way, you guys are going to take the check. Where the hell's your honor? What's going on? But see, that's what it kept reinforcing to me. This is the system. Nobody knows This is it. Pete, if you walk into a room that's freshly painted, what's the first thing you smell, right? The smell of the paint,
Mm-hmm.
right? What happens when you stand in there for 15 minutes? You don't smell anymore.
Nope.
It's still there. You adjusted. You acclimated. You conformed. You sold out. And people like me, I don't know. God hates me. So, I mean, I, so I don't know. You just try to do the best I can with all of this. But, getting back real quick too, we talk about golf and integrity, and I know I've mentioned it to you before. Every time, and I've heard several times, and I'm sure it's happened way more times than I've heard it. Here we are in a day and age of who in the hell can you trust? You got PED tests and all this stuff. I mean, and you got air coming out of footballs and all this crap going on. And we don't even know what else is going on that we haven't caught, right? I was telling somebody once, if you're playing with a friend of yours for like 5 years, and one day you're playing golf and on a hole, you get done with it and you say, what do you have? And he said 5, and it's a 6. You think that's the first time he cheated? It's the first time you caught him. So, but in this day and age now, where all this is going on, you got golfers who are calling penalties on themselves, and they're the only ones that know it. They're the only ones that know it, and that's what I love about the sport. Maybe there's some that are getting away with something, I don't know, but what was it? It was down in your area. 2010 in the Heritage, and some guy was playing in, I guess, sudden death with Jim Furyk, and he was on number 18 off to the left,
Yep.
and he hit a shot out of the sand, and he flicked part of a leaf of something that only he saw. I mean, he wasn't even sure.
I think it was Brian Davis. I think was his name.
Yeah.
Yep.
And he
right.
wasn't even sure. He told him, you might want to double check this. I might have hit that. And they ran it in slow motion, and he did. Now, that cost the guy, let's just say it cost him the tournament. God knows how much money. You want to talk about integrity? Right there. Right there. And we just need, look, we're always going to have our fair share of people that don't value that. But I'll tell you what, the problem is the system is designed so that it doesn't appreciate it. I'd say recently in some talks that, when you set out to do something and achieve something, the first thing I always felt that was going to set me on the right course was integrity. My integrity was going to get me to go the direction of what was the right way to do it. And the other thing that was going to prevent me from being tempted to stray was the word shame. That the shame, shame of myself, even shame of my family, that kind of consequence was so severe, there was no way. I would rather lose than do that. Like the kid down at Heritage, he said he couldn't have lived with himself. Those are the kind of people we need in charge of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But the standards are so low now.
What did you learn most from your 40 years in the corporate world?
Well, a few times, I've been asked, mostly from business students. I've done some work at Robert Morris at Oakland University here, Michigan State, Central Michigan. And every once in a while, I'll get the question, was it my goal in life to be a corporate CEO of that big of a company? And my answer always is no, because it wasn't. And then the next obvious question was, then what were your goals, or what was your goal? And I said, well, I was a young professional, and And I always wanted to put my head down and do my job. And I was committed to, as best I could, fulfill the obligations uh, of my team and my boss, as well as my wife. We were just married, and because I had obligations. I had obligations to my family. I had obligations to my job, my team, and I just worked really, really hard to fulfill them. And then one day they tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Okay, now do this." And I focused on my obligations and responsibilities, treated them incredibly seriously, did the very best I could. And then they tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Okay, good, do this." And then over and over and over again, after 5 cities and I don't know how many jobs, they tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Go do this." And I was the CEO of Johnson Controls. And so what I learned was it's fine to have goals that are set for yourself that are in the future, whether you pick an horizon of 2 years or 3 or 5, whatever. But what really matters is the quality of your execution and the quality of that journey to get there. So I don't think there's anything wrong with setting long-term goals, but I think the most effective way to process everything is to live through the journey as with quality and integrity and enjoyment.
Yeah, I think people
So
lose the last one.
yeah, they really do, and that's why, like we talked earlier, why I opened up this whole definition of success thing, because we have an orthodoxy where, like I say, when I ask a young person, "What's success look like to you?" If it's a business student, they'll tell me what company they work for, what title they have, probably what their salary is, and that doesn't make them a bad person. That's just how we do it. That's just what the standard fare is. And when I open it up and talk about, well, okay, let me ask you this: if you were a CP or CFO for a Fortune 50 company, but you were a jagoff, are you successful now? Well, I'll tell you, they stop real quick.
Mm-hmm.
They stop real quick. It, it's again, how you live your life is, for me, much more important than what you achieved. Um, uh, So, because I also believe, look, I mean, I just take the flyer. If you live your life and you enjoy it and you respect others and you value your honor and integrity, um, uh, you'll get to wherever you're trying to go. I just believe that. My dad, the waiter, um, before he died in '98, and I was kind of moving up the ladder. And he pulled me aside one day, and he didn't know anything about corporate America. Um, and he said, "Rand, you look like you're, going up the ladder. And I just want you to know you'll probably get a lot of stuff in your life. But there's only two things that no one can ever take away from you. Only two, and that's your honor and your integrity." And he stopped and he said, "But those are two things that you can give away in the blink of an eye." And obviously that's seared into my head. So I think that I think it all comes down, Pete, to what extent you value your honor and your integrity, and that's a personal decision. I'm not judging anybody for what they decide, but I think it has to be something that's baked into whatever your definition of success is, and if it's there and if it matters, it's going to control how you get to where you're trying to go. Once again, the how
Mm-hmm.
again. So uh, anyway,
Let's move past the corporate stuff, and you and Georgia, your wife, have, as you said, the Robert Morris Integrity First Scholarship Program. Uh, Tell us a little bit about how that came about, what it entails, and how, when that was started.
Well, we're going into year 13 now. So it started 13 years ago. And what happened, when I kind of finished up with my career. I mean, I don't like to use the word retire. That sounds like, like a retire a debt. That means it's dead. I mean, we're just transitioning from one purpose to another. And we hit a point where part of what we wanted to do was what we've been blessed with, the resources we've been blessed with, is to, help others, whether it's an organization or individuals or whoever, that we feel need the help, and we want to help. So one of those entities is my alma mater, Robert Morris. And I learned a lot from Robert Morris University back in the day. More maybe than I learned in the classroom and from the books. It was more. I learned so much more from the environment. And by the way, a quick story on that and golf. The president of the board of trustees. I gave the commencement speech at Robert Morris in 2015. The president's name was Greg DeLomo, and Gary Klaus at the time was president of the board of trustees. Now, Gary Klaus and I were teammates on the golf team in 1972 and 1973. So now I'm up on the stage, and to the right of me is Greg DeLomo, the president. To the left of me is Gary Klaus, and there's about 3,000 people in the audience, including 500 graduates. And so now Greg DeLomo gets up to introduce me, and I lean over because I can't help myself, and I say, Gary, who in the hell 40 years ago would have bet you and me would be sitting here doing this right now? and he looked at me, and I'm blinking an eye. He goes, Randy, I don't know about me, but the over and under, are you going to prison, was age 30. And just then, Greg DeLomo goes, and welcome home, our commencement speaker. So you want to talk about golf, and that's a golf story, but oh man, 40 years later, we're sitting up there wearing these weird caps and gowns and robes, and anyway, but when I contacted Robert Morris and said, look, I'd like to do something for the business school, I through my career and my experiences, much of which is chronicled in the book, I really was worried a lot about what I see as the almost extinction of integrity in the system, which to me is the most necessary of any leader in any leadership role. And so I wanted to donate some money for scholarships, and they said to me, well, you want to do, I said, but I don't just want to write a check, because that's easy and fine. I'm sure you appreciate that, but I want to put some other skin in the game than just write a check. And they said, well, we came up with, through collaboration, the Integrity First Scholarship. And they said, well, it'd be the Rande Somma Integrity First Scholarship. I said, no, we don't need Rande Somma. It's just the Integrity First Scholarship. No, we need no, we don't. I don't need my name on here. Okay. I don't need that. And they said, no. And then they finally said, Randy, this isn't about you. This is about us, because we haven't had too many presidents of Fortune 50 companies graduate from here, and we want to milk it. So this is about us. And so now it's fine. So it's now called the Rande and Georgia Somma Scholarship. And so every year we work on putting out a case to the students that has in it questionable moral, ethical situations. And then at the end of the case, they're given questions to answer through writing of an essay. And so I find, in fact, I just got this year's to evaluate. They got 48 essays this year. The business school has narrowed it down to 12. They send them to me. And by the way, they're anonymous. They're applicant AB. I said, look, at the start, look, I'm half Italian. If the person's last name's Consilla, they're getting the award. So I want talk about this is about integrity, right? So anyway, they applicant numbers or letters or whatever, and then myself, my wife, and my two sons. Not always, but they try to. I'll read them and then weigh in with their top four. And this year it's going to be 5. We've upped it to $5,000 scholarships, and we send them into the business school, and then the students get the money, and then in the fall we have a dinner and an ethics workshop that I speak at, and this past year we had 250 or 60 students there, so it was a really well attended. So that's it. I mean, it's it's funny. I mean, one year we couldn't decide between two essays to pick the fourth scholarship. So I said to my wife, I said to Georgia, no, read it again, and then I'll read it again, and we have to pick one of the two. So she comes back and she said, I cannot make the decision. And I said, okay, fine, just give me the two, and I'll figure out something. And she just stopped and said, what are you going to do? Flip a coin? Throw a dart? By the way, this is an integrity scholarship. So I picked up the phone and called the dean. I said, okay, this year there's going to be 5. So we had 5 that year.
That's pretty cool. What is it about successful people that always want to give back? Because the very first interview I did was Mike Harmon at Director Golf at Secession, and he created a mentor program to help kids who might not have the means to get access to the golf course that he works at, instruction, equipment, the ability to play. He advises them, are you playing in this tournament, and you're going to do this and that and the other thing. But what is it? Is there a gene that drives you to be successful, that once you reach a level of success, you want to give back to those who you feel that could use it? Or is it just something that's instilled in you as a youngster?
That's where I was leaning. I know how I was. I don't know about anybody else. I know about myself. I mean, I came up. I was raised in a 600 square foot house. My parents were awesome, but they didn't have much. My mother was a waitress. She didn't even have a driver's license. She was a waitress in a restaurant, and but they were great. And look, I worked my way through college, and then married my best friend, and so I mean it was a lot of work, a lot of I was scared to death some of the times, going through stuff, and just keep pushing and pushing. I'd like to think that when you get to a place where you have the resources to reach back and help others. And like I said, in my case, I wanted to reach back and help people and things that had something to do with me making it to where I made it. Now, are there a lot of people that just don't care or just blow it off or don't feel that way? I'm sure there are. But I think it's the way that you're raised, and so many things are it's why I really, when you talk about really fixing our issue right now, one of the first places I would start is parents start being parents again, because that's where the thing goes sideways in the first place. Is parents aren't raising kids properly anymore. They shifted to being pals, and things have gone haywire. So I think that I at least can only speak for myself, that I just think it's the right thing to do, and Georgia does too. So maybe it was my upbringing. I don't know, but
I'd say it's a pretty good reason.
Yeah.
If so, let's say that you're giving a commencement speech again at Robert Morris, and 21-year-old Rande Somma is in the audience, and you get to meet him. What would be the one thing that you would tell him as he prepares to go out into the, whether he's on the golf team and he wants to turn pro or he wants to go in the business world? What would be your advice to him?
Well, my advice to him would be this, or her and her. Look, you're going to make mistakes in your life. You're going to have regrets, guaranteed. Just promise yourself right now that the one regret that you will never have is that you sold out on your honor and integrity, regardless of what you perceive the benefit to be.
And we already know the answer to if he would listen, because he did.
It's a hard thing though, Pete. I get it. I get why they're challenged. That's why they need mentors, right? The world we live in is keeping score with dollars and cents, not with virtues.
Mm-hmm.
And damn it, that's how you don't get your quality of the life and the things you're talking about and enjoyment on dollars and cents. You get it out of your virtues. What kind of person are you? How do you live your life? What's your reputation? How do you sleep at night? I do, and that's what I do tell them. And while I tell them that, by the way, I know that they're moving into a place that doesn't appreciate somebody who is driven by their honor and integrity. That just gets in the way. That might get you fired. But I'm not telling you something else. I just told a young person recently, I said, look, I gave him this advice that I just said to you. And I said, now the chances are, unless you get really lucky, the chances are you're going to take a couple shots. But here's what I believe. I can't prove it, not for a minute, but here's what I believe. You will take shots short term, but long term, you will win. Versus winning short term and long term, lose, and you can't unring the bell. You sold out your honor and integrity, you want it back. You can't unring the bell. Don't do that. That's what I would tell them.
What would you say? You obviously achieved a very high level of success. What would you say your superpower was?
My superpower?
Mm-hmm.
Interpersonal skills. Ability, what's called today, by the way, in some circles, emotional intelligence. But it certainly wasn't my IQ or my GPA, I don't think. But it was my EQ, and I really had the ability, just I guess natural ability, to interface with all kinds of people in all parts of the world, and most of the time have very, very productive and in some cases, most cases, enjoyable interactions. The people that work for me, if you see those morale surveys, and I mean, when we started the morale survey, one of the many questions that were asked of the people was, do you believe in and have faith in the leader? And in year one, 61% said yes, which meant 39% said either no or I don't know. And I asked the third party company to please go out and ask why the 39% said what they said. I can't act on a number, but I can act on why they said it. And we got that information, and we acted on that. And in year three, it was 81%. Since I wrote the book, I've heard from through LinkedIn and people that work for me at Johnson Controls that I haven't talked to since then, and it's been 16, 17 years now. And it was very gratifying to hear that things that that I said, how I represented myself and my leadership style in the book is exactly the way they saw me. So I think it was the ability to, and by the way, it was the ability to interact at all levels, and even with people that work for me, never to treat them other than just like another person. So I think the interpersonal skills and at all levels was the biggest thing.
If was there anything that you were sure about 25, 30 years ago, 100% sure that you found out now was wrong or incorrect? Maybe wrong's too strong of a word.
20 or 30 years ago, I believe was true, and now I don't.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what you mean? Well, let me answer this way. Maybe getting back to not to be redundant, but how I can never get, I never have gotten used to. Every time that I see another example of leaders misbehaving, I just, you think I would just get used to it by now. And I just can't. I suppose there was a time. I mean, somebody asked me not too long ago, well, weren't there always bad leaders? And I said, yeah, but let me tell you what, when there was a time when you saw a priest walking down the street, you knew that all priests weren't good, but it wasn't reckless to assume the one you were looking at was worthy of being a priest. I mean, it wasn't the center of gravity. I said, when Babe Ruth hit the home run, or when Henry Aaron hit the home run to break Babe Ruth's record, as he rounded the bases, there wasn't a person on the planet that thought that he might have done PEDs to hit those home runs. Fast forward to 2006, Barry Bonds, and everybody knows it breaks the record, and everybody knows he cheated to hit the home runs.
Mm-hmm.
So there's just been this swing from the exceptions have become the rule, and I just can never get used to it. Every time I see it, I get sick. I just get sick, and I mean, I said this, a friend of mine one time, I said, well, how do they even sleep at night? He goes, Randy, they have no shame. This is normal. They don't think they're doing anything wrong. Bad is normal. The only one that isn't sleeping is you, because you can't get used to it. And I said, well, that's unfortunate. But so, yeah, I would guess, and the best answer I can give you, that I thought that, there was going to be exceptions to, I always felt leaders were in a class of their own, to the extent that it could never be contaminated. I really did believe that, as naive as it probably sounds. But now, what I'm learning, and I've learned a lot since I wrote the book. These people that are getting a hold of me, I never heard of before. I'm talking on the phone. They're this company, that company. I mean, they're not automotive companies. And it's over and over and over and over again. And this company and that company, I'm like, I was more right than I wished I was. So I just felt like, leadership was a protected class, that we would never lose. We would never not trust them, even though we knew there might be some exceptions. Today, I never would have thought, as far as I'm concerned, the good ones are the exceptions.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's the best I can. And the only reason, like I said, the only reason I say that is every time I see or hear of another example, I can't keep the puke in my mouth.
I'm not laughing. I'm just laughing at the phrase.
Well, I'm serious, though.
That's a pretty good one.
I hate this. I hate this.
Anyway, let me ask you. because JCI, Johnson Controls Incorporated, for some that don't know, you guys used to have corporate outings, and you'd bring in professionals because
Yeah, I mean, we had a golf
yeah.
out. We had a one once a year. We had a customer golf outing. It was pretty big one. You know, a couple hundred customers.
Who is the favorite pro that you guys used to bring in?
Well, I'm the one that brought the pro in, and my favorite was Fuzzy Zeller. Now we we brought Fuzzy in. Now we brought some other ones. They were all good, you know, and they were all good. But Fuzzy, we actually brought him in twice, and the second time was after his to do at the Masters regarding Tiger, and you know, and that situation was so bad that when I told the country club in Ann Arbor that we were going to bring Fuzzy back, and they said they had to talk to their members before they could okay that, because there was that racial, you know, component to everything there. But you know, the first one was, we brought him in the second time, and he was fine. But the first one, he was, you know, he was just, as people know him, you know, very friendly and personable, and he I remember he you know, I go and pick him up at the airport, at the Ann Arbor airport. He's got his own plane, and as we're driving up to the course, I said, "Now, Fuzzy, you're going to be on a hole with you know, on a par 3, and you're going to hit a ball with every foursome that comes through. Take a picture, and so you'll be there all day. What do you need?" And he said, "Well, I need some water. I need 2 packs of Marlboros. I need a bottle of vodka and some tonic." I was like, oh my God. So, okay. All right, fine. So we get that out to him. Now I'm out there with the customers, blah, 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 blah. So now it's time for dinner. So there's, in the way it works, he had dinner, and then he gets up and says some things, and, you know, he hands out the awards, and then that's it. So I'm sitting next to him at dinner, and they put down it's a steak, and he tells me could you please, or ask me to please hand him the salt. So I hand him the salt, and look out of the corner of my eye, he's shaking it, and it's not coming out fast enough. So he unscrews it.
Oh, no.
And he shoves about a pound and a half in his hand and just dumps it. And I looked at him and I said, "You know, Fuzzy," and he looks at me, "What?" I said, "You know, you're the reason why there's even a debate that golfers are athletes." And he said, what do you mean by that? I said, just today, you drank a bottle of vodka, at least 2 packs of cigarettes, and put a half a pound of salt on your steak. That's why." And he looked at me without blinking an eye and said, "You know, Randy, you know why?" I said, "Why?" He goes, "When I'm dead, I want to look dead." and I said, "Okay, I think you're gonna make it." But yeah, he was maybe the best. They were all pretty good. We had Tom Weisskopf and Craig Stadler, Curtis Strange, Freddie Couples. I'm forgetting some of them, but it worked out nice. It was a nice outing, and everybody got a good kick out of it.
I've got to ask you one more story, and I only ask it because it's such a good story about you and the raisins. If you can tell that one, because I think everybody will get a kick out of that one.
Yeah, well,
if you want to, I don't want to twist your arm.
No. I have no. Hey, Pete. Look, I have no. I'm a pretty secure guy. You know, I mean, there's probably a few things I'd rather not say, but because I haven't said them, nobody knows what they are. But no, you know, at some point in time, it's a point in time where you know, I got diagnosed with ADHD, and you know, both of my sons, Scott and Adam, have it. So I wanted to get it, and just for kicks, I wanted, because I could see that, you know, I was demonstrating pretty much the same symptoms as they looked pretty familiar. So So I did that, and so yeah, ADHD. Yes, you are ADHD. So you know what that is. You're jumping up and down, and these are called hypertension, and so my ADHD doctor, and on my bucket list, I just called it. I want to live in the moment, right? I mean, that was the title on my bucket list. I want to live in the moment. So I'm telling my ADHD doctor. Doctor, I want to. That's my goal in life. I want to live in the moment, right? I don't want to be spastic. And you kind of had to when you're running a big company and stuff. But now I want to live in the moment. He goes, well, you know what? I'm starting a class. It's 6 sessions, and it's in the evening, and it's X amount of dollars, and that's what it's called is living in the moment, mind meditation or something like that. And that's what I do is teach this. And he said, you want to try it? And I said, yeah, I can try it. So I'm go to the first session, okay, but now let's go to the second session. He starts out the second session, and he hands everybody a raisin, and he says, okay, don't do anything with this raisin yet. He said, now what I'm going to do is now put it in your mouth. Don't do anything. Just put it in your mouth, and you're gonna keep the raisin in your mouth for 5 minutes, and it's gonna feel like 5 hours. I get it, but I'm gonna talk you through it. So I put it in the raisin in my mouth. Everybody's raisin in the mouth. He says, okay, now roll the raisin to the left, roll the raisin to the right, roll the raisin under your tongue, roll the raisin to the tip of your tongue. And he's gone on and on and on. And the 5 minutes are up. He said, okay, eat the raisin or throw it away, whatever you want to do. So the next day, I go to his office and I say, hey, doc, I'm going to just write you a check for the 6 sessions. I'm out. And he said, what do you mean you're out? Why are you out? I said, you know how you said don't eat the raisin for 5 minutes? I said, yeah. I said, I ate the raisin before you said don't eat the raisin for 5 minutes. And I faked it for 5 minutes. I faked rolling a raisin in my mouth for 5 minutes. That was bull crap. He said, you're right. You got no shot. Give me your check. That was. I ate the raisin before you said don't eat the raisin. I said, next time you need to say don't eat the raisin faster.
Yeah, that's got to be the opening.
Anyway, yeah, I mean, but how classic was that? I mean, I'm just, I'm probably never going to live in the moment.
Well, I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that are saying that's me.
I did. I looked at her. I said, why are you? I ate the raisin before you said don't eat the raisin. He goes, yeah, you're probably done.
Yeah, you're out. You're
out.
You're an outlier.
You're out.
Go.
But you are the first one that admitted it, at least.
Let's do a few rapid fire. Wrap up.
Yeah.
I know I've taken enough of your time.
No, it's all right. Yeah.
So let's go back to when you were getting out of school. If rent and having a wife and buying food wasn't a priority. In other words, you could have done anything in the world that you wanted to back then. Would you have gone into the auto industry, or what would you have done?
No. In fact, when we first came, when George and I we got married and my first job was with Rockwell International in Reading, Pennsylvania. It was a textile machine company, a plant. That was back in '73 when double knits clothes were popular, and that plant made the machines that made the double knit material. So we were off doing that, and I didn't end up in automotive until we went back to Pittsburgh for a while, then Winchester, Kentucky, which was a heavy duty truck axle plant, then Marysville, Ohio, which was a heavy duty truck axle plant, and then in '82 we came up here to Detroit with Rockwell still at the headquarters, and then it wasn't until '88 that I got with Johnson Controls. No, I you know what, Pete? I tell people when young people, I mean, I said, look, when you go out and if they're talking to me about helping them with their resume and going on. How do they target where they're going to work? I said, what do you love to do? Try to get as close to your work, what you love to do in your personal life. I asked one young man one time, I said, like, what do you like to do in your personal life? He said, video games. And I went, oh, God. And I said, okay, then try to go to work for a video game company. Get that association. It gives you some ability to if you like that, then you maybe that bridge will help you like your job better. But I tell young people, go try to find a job that you love. And I never did. I mean, I started on textile machines, heavy duty truck axles, automotive seating. I mean, none of those were my life dream. My dream in my life was to own a golf course. That was my dream. So go try to. I said, it may take you a long time. Maybe you never get there, but figure out what you love to do in your personal life and try to find a job in an industry that has some association with that. Mm-hmm. At least it's a start.
Your dream foursome.
My dream foursome. Well, yeah. Arnold Palmer, because he's from Pittsburgh. My dad. And boy, that's okay. Arnold Palmer, my dad, and Joe Peich.
Joe's a good guy. I remember him.
Yeah, he was. You don't have enough time for all my golf stories with Joe Peich, SNF Golf. I mean, my God Almighty, rest his soul. The three people I picked are dead, by the way. What does that mean?
It means that you're the elder statesman.
Oh, man, I'm next. That's what it means.
Let's see. Tiger or Jack? Greatest of all time.
Tiger or Jack relative to what?
Who do you consider the greatest all time? Tiger or Jack?
Well, I'm going to say Jack. And just to keep it short, I just think he played against a tougher competition in his day than Tiger's saying.
Mm-hmm. All right.
That.
Let's see. If there was one tournament in the world that you could win, any tournament, what would it be?
Masters.
That came quick. That's rapid fire.
Yeah. I mean, I love it. I love that. I love that tournament. I really do.
Let's see. Bucket list golf courses. Let's
Pebble
say
Beach.
Pick three, okay?
Pebble Beach, St. Andrews, and Augusta.
Went out on a limb on those, huh?
Well, I mean, come on, Pete. I mean, if I don't say those three, people don't think I'm a golfer. I mean, what? Oh, okay. Pine Trace Public Course, and I mean,
let's see. Cavity back or blade?
Cavity back. It used to be blade, but not now.
Your favorite golf course that you've played?
Muirfield in Columbus.
Now wait a minute.
I won the member guest there in 1981, which was probably the best win I ever had in golf, maybe. But great golf course.
Now, I got to stop these questions for a second because I always considered you a true Pittsburgher.
Yeah.
Now we had two questions on golf courses, and Oakmont didn't even crack the discussion.
Right.
I don't know if I think some of your fellow burgers are going to be a little irritated with that.
No, one. I'll tell you. I'll tell you. You want me to tell you why, or you just want to?
No,
make
go
fun
ahead.
Okay. Because they changed the whole look of Oakmont a couple of years ago. They just took all the trees down. They turned it into like a Scottish looking thing. I don't. I mean, I personally, what they did to that course, and I only saw it from driving around it. Versus, I haven't played Oakmont since I was a teenager, but they just made it. They took it from being like an Oakland Hills to this wide open heather filled thing. And I just thought, I mean, I'm just one person that, there's some things you shouldn't mess with, could you imagine them doing that kind of crap at Augusta?
No.
Yeah, and I know, by the way, it's really hard on top of everything else. Not that I don't, I mean, not that I happen to know it because I played it. The other ones I haven't played, but I want to find out how hard they are.
All right. And the last one. Are you the greatest SNF golfer in history?
Well, here I go again. You need to define great. What's the great mean? I'm one of the more interesting. I was director for 8 years, so that probably counts for something. But no, I mean, if you're talking about how good they are, nah, there's guys like Duke Phillips, Bill Reinhardt, Larry Milosh, Pete Popovich. So I'm nowhere near in that category.
All right, I'll let you slide. Excuse me. Let you slide on that one because I think a lot of people would debate you on that one. Maybe I should say the most legendary.
I don't know. Well, maybe that. Yeah, I'm sure that there's. Listen. I'll tell you what, though. I was just the tournament is this year. The SNF golf tournament is in Monroeville this year, which used to be Wilmerding in Pittsburgh, a suburb. And my first SNF golf tournament was in 1967. I won the Junior B Flight Championship. Now, that might have been my greatest win of all time. And by the way, for some reason that I cannot explain, I still have the trophy. How about that?
That's pretty impressive.
50-some years ago. My God. Anyway.
All right, your book, Leadership, SHIT, for everyone listening. A look at the broken leadership system in America. Where can listeners find copies of your book?
They can find it on Amazon. It's also on. No, I think it's on. Well, yeah, I would just go to Amazon, and it's available. And it's available in hard copy, ebook, as well as paperback.
Cool. So, can people follow? You're on social media, aren't you?
I'm on LinkedIn. I'm the only reason I'm on Facebook is because the publisher told me that they really would like me to do that, but I'm not real crazy about Facebook. I don't know. I just don't have time to look at that stuff. But yeah, I am on Facebook and I am on LinkedIn.
All right. The last thing, if someone wanted to reach out to you to get into your mentoring program or advice, consulting, any of those things, what's the best way to reach out to you?
Send me an email at Rande, Rande, Somma, SOMMA, @gmail.com.
All right. It's been awesome, Randy. Knowing you almost my whole life, as long as I can remember, and you mentored me, and I don't know if that gives you any credence or it probably hurts your reputation, but
well, I'll tell you what, and I mean this in sincerity, I am very proud of you. Very proud of you.
And you've done a lot for a lot of people. So I hope everyone enjoys listening to this. Hopefully we can do another one. And as always, thank you for the time. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for listening to today's show. If you enjoyed it, you can find more information on today's episode and other topics at golf360.blog. There you'll find the show notes and links related to this episode, as well as any other episode that we've done so far to date. If you're interested in improving your game and would like to learn more from yours truly by taking a private lesson, a half-day or multi-day school, club or putter fitting, you can reach me through the blog site or by email, pete@golf360.blog. So some of you may be asking, what is the golf paradigm? All you have to do is click on the homepage while on my blog site to discover how you can start playing better than you ever thought possible. Or you can simply sign up, again, on the blog page for my instructional videos where I give regular tips on all areas of the game to include the swing, club design and fitting, health, fitness and nutrition, the mental aspects, and equally as important, the integration of all those things together. I'm also on social media, and you can find me at The Golf Paradigm. That's Paradigm. And I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel, also under the same name, The Golf Paradigm. Facebook is usually the best way to reach me for questions and/or comments, and I look forward to hearing what all of you have to say.